Have you ever felt like something subtle was changing in someone you love? A small shift that's easy to brush off, yet hard to shake? Maybe it was a few extra naps, a quieter dinner table, or a lingering glance that seemed different. We tell ourselves it's just getting older, just stress, just one of those days. But what if those justs are not so simple? In this video, we're diving into the quiet signs the body gives, signs that doctors and caregivers around the world have come to recognize as the gentle whispers that life may be preparing to let go. These aren't the loud, obvious signals of illness. They're soft, almost invisible. A half-eaten meal, a laugh that doesn't quite reach the eyes, a once chatty parent who now simply nods instead of speaking. Subtle, ordinary, and yet deeply significant. You see, in the final months, sometimes even weeks, of life, the body speaks in a language most of us were never taught to hear, and because these signs often appear so quietly, they go unnoticed, unspoken, misunderstood, until one day it's too late, and the moment for presence, for comfort, for closure has slipped away. But it doesn't have to be that way. When you learn to recognize these changes for what they truly are, you're not giving up. You're giving more compassion, more patience, more love. You're saying, I see you, I'm here, and I won't let this time pass without meaning. So stay with me, not just to understand the medical truth behind these subtle signs, but to open your heart to a deeper kind of awareness, one that can bring peace instead of panic, clarity instead of fear, connection instead of regret. Because in the final chapter of life, even the quietest moments can speak volumes, and how we listen changes everything. But before we dive in, like this video, and if you're new here, subscribe for more insightful content like this and leave a comment saying, I subscribe, so we can welcome you personally. Let's begin. 1. Changes in sleep patterns. When rest becomes a message. One of the earliest and most commonly overlooked signs that a loved one may be entering the final chapter of life is a profound change in their sleep. It doesn't arrive with drama. In fact, it often slips in quietly. Just a few extra naps at first, or a restless night here and there. At first glance, it seems harmless. Maybe they're just tired. Maybe it was a rough night. But beneath the surface, something deeper may be happening. As the body begins to conserve energy, systems that once worked in perfect harmony, digestion, circulation, mobility, start to slow down. That energy is no longer being used in the same way, and so the body shifts, often retreating into more and more sleep. I think of Harold, an 81-year-old from Tennessee. For as long as his daughter could remember, his afternoons were sacred. The same recliner, the same baseball replays, the same gentle commentary humming from the TV. But one spring, something changed. He couldn't stay awake past the first inning. Within weeks, Harold was sleeping 16 to 18 hours a day, wide awake at 2 or 3 a.m., silently pacing the hallway while the rest of the house lay in darkness. His family thought it was just poor sleep hygiene. Boredom, maybe. They tried to adjust his schedule, wake him earlier, re-establish routines, but nothing worked. Later, doctors helped them understand this wasn't insomnia. It was a signal. Medical researchers, including those at Harvard, have observed that as the end of life approaches, the brain's internal clock, the circadian rhythm, begins to shift. It no longer distinguishes day from night in the usual way. Sleep becomes less about recovery and more about withdrawal. The body, and often the mind, are gradually stepping away from the world. And here's what's most heartbreaking. Because this change seems so normal, families often miss it. They become frustrated. They try to correct it. They push for alertness and activity, when what's truly needed is gentleness, patience and presence. So, what can you do if you begin to notice this change? Start by observing, not fixing. Keep a small notebook. Track sleep and wakefulness over a few days. If your loved one is sleeping more than 15 or 16 hours a day consistently, it may be time to bring that pattern to their doctor's attention. But beyond medical steps, there's an emotional choice to be made, one of response. Instead of urging them to stay awake or worrying over lost routine, meet them where they are. Sit beside them. Read the headlines out loud. Let them rest while you simply hold their hand. These moments, so quiet, so small, may become some of the most profound memories you'll carry forward. Recognizing this shift doesn't mean giving up. It means showing up, fully, lovingly, wisely, not to change the rhythm, but to honor it. Because when sleep deepens, it isn't always about fatigue. Sometimes it's the body's way of preparing for goodbye, and your presence in those moments becomes the greatest gift of all. 2. Loss of appetite. When food becomes farewell. Another subtle but profound sign that often escapes notice is a quiet disinterest in food. We expect our loved ones to slow down with age, maybe eat a little less, and at first that's exactly what it seems like. Families assume it's just a shift in taste, a side effect of medication, or even a momentary mood. But when someone begins to consistently leave food untouched, avoid even their favorite dishes, or only nibble a few bites before setting the fork down, something deeper may be happening. Let me tell you about Ethel, an 82-year-old from Michigan. For over 60 years, Ethel baked her famous apple pies every Sunday. Warm, flaky, and rich with cinnamon, they were the heart of family gatherings after church. But one autumn, her daughter noticed something unusual. Ethel barely touched her slice. The next Sunday, she didn't even mention dessert. Within 2 months, she had lost weight. Her daughter thought it might be depression. But when they spoke with Ethel's doctors, the truth was gentler and far more profound. Her body wasn't rejecting food out of sadness or stubbornness. It was letting go. Palliative care experts from the Mayo Clinic explain that as the body nears the end of life, digestion becomes less of a priority. The body is reallocating energy to the most vital functions: the heart, the lungs, the brain. Food, once a source of nourishment and joy, begins to fade into the background. This can be especially painful for families, where meals have long symbolized care, tradition, and love. We're taught to show affection through cooking, to worry when plates go untouched. So when a loved one stops eating, it's easy to respond with fear, to push, to coax, to beg for just a few more bites. But here's the truth. It's not about the food anymore. Forcing meals at this stage can lead to discomfort, nausea, even harm. Instead, what's needed is a shift in how we think about nourishment. Think small and gentle. A spoonful of mashed potatoes, a slice of soft fruit, a sip of warm broth. More than anything, offer presence over pressure. Track what they're eating, yes, and share that with a doctor, especially if appetite loss continues for more than a week or significant weight loss sets in. But don't let calories be your only concern. Because in this sacred stretch of time, meals aren't about fullness. They're about connection. Sit beside them. Tell a favorite story. Play a quiet tune. Hold their hand as they take a bite, or simply choose not to. Your love is not measured by how much they eat, but by how fully you're there, without judgment, without fear, only tenderness. 3. Social withdrawal. When the heart grows quiet. Another sign that often passes unnoticed, or is misunderstood, is when a loved one slowly begins to withdraw from the world around them. At first it might look like simple fatigue, a grumpy mood, or a need for space. They might skip a phone call, cancel a lunch, or seem disinterested in the weekly family dinner they once looked forward to. But when this behavior becomes a pattern, when someone who once thrived on conversation, connection, and companionship begins to retreat into long silences or solitary days, it may be more than just tiredness. It can be the beginning of the body and spirit turning inward, a natural step in the process of letting go. Take Franklin, an 84-year-old from Ohio. Every Friday for years he joined his friends for poker night, always arriving with his lucky hat, a pocket full of peppermints, and a laugh that filled the room. But gradually he stopped going. He stopped answering his grandson's calls. He spent more time alone, sitting quietly by the window. At first, his daughter assumed he was simply slowing down. But later, doctors helped her understand. This withdrawal wasn't sadness or rejection, it was preparation. Specialists at Johns Hopkins explain that social withdrawal at the end of life is not always a sign of depression. Rather, it can be an inward shift as the mind and spirit begin focusing less on the external world and more on peace, memory, and release. For families, this can be one of the hardest changes to witness. It may feel like being shut out or like their loved one is slipping away emotionally before they physically go. But here's what's essential to remember. It's not personal. This isn't about pushing people away. It's about finding stillness. It's not rejection. It's reflection. So how can you support someone during this quiet retreat? Don't force conversation or social interaction. Offer companionship without pressure. Sit nearby with a book, share a soft song, or simply hold their hand. Let them set the pace. Let silence be okay. In these moments, your presence, not your words, is what matters most. The greatest act of love is often found in allowing someone to walk their final path with dignity and space, to honor their quiet with your own stillness, to be near, without needing anything in return. 4. Conversations with the unseen, a glimpse beyond the veil. Another sign that frequently surprises, even unsettles, families is when a loved one begins speaking to people who are no longer alive, or referencing things that seem out of place in time. These moments can feel surreal, a grandmother murmuring to her late husband, a father calling out to a brother who passed decades ago, a quiet voice in the night whispering names long forgotten. To those witnessing it, the instinct may be concern. Is this confusion, hallucination, dementia? But often it's something far more meaningful. Take Vernon, an 86-year-old from Florida. Though his memory remained sharp, birthdays recalled perfectly, politics passionately debated, his daughter noticed something unusual. In the evenings, he would sit alone in the living room, softly speaking. One night she overheard him say, "Martha, I know you're here." Martha had died 6 years earlier. His daughter feared it was the onset of dementia, but when they spoke with hospice nurses, she was told this wasn't unusual at all. According to specialists at the Cleveland Clinic, as the body nears the end, neurological and spiritual processes begin to shift. Decreased oxygen levels, changes in perception, and the natural psychological transitions of dying can create vivid experiences, not delusions, but deeply personal moments that may feel more real than the world around them. In many cases, these conversations bring peace. They allow the dying to revisit loved ones, relive memories, and feel a sense of connection to something beyond the physical. Yet families often make the mistake of correcting their loved one. That person isn't here. That never happened. You're confused. But in doing so, they may unknowingly rob them of comfort. Instead, consider this. Listen gently. Ask curious, loving questions. What did Martha say? Or, do you feel like she's near? Write down what they share. Don't treat these experiences as errors in memory. Treat them as gifts. Sometimes these conversations reveal untold stories, old regrets, or forgotten joys. They offer a final glimpse into the inner life of someone preparing to cross over. Rather than viewing them as detachment from reality, it may be more honest and more compassionate to see them as a bridge, a sacred space between here and beyond. In those moments, what your loved one needs most is not correction but companionship. A steady hand, a listening heart, someone willing to walk beside them even as they begin to turn toward another world. Because one day we will all take that walk, and the greatest kindness we can offer now is the presence we will one day hope to receive. If you're still here, thank you for staying with me through this tender journey. If this message is resonating with you, if you felt a shift in how you view these quiet signs, please comment number 4 below. It lets me know you're here, and that these stories are reaching the hearts that need them. And if you haven't yet, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Your support helps us continue creating content that not only informs, but comforts, honors, and uplifts. Now, let's continue forward together. 5. Loss of physical strength. When the body whispers, slow down. One of the most visible, and yet often misunderstood, signs that life may be entering its final stage is a sudden and noticeable decline in physical strength. This isn't the gradual slowing we expect with age, not the stiff knees or the slower walks. It's a shift that can seem to arrive almost overnight. Things that once seemed easy, standing up from a chair, walking across the room, lifting a teacup, begin to feel strangely heavy. Take Carmen, an 83-year-old from Texas. Her mornings had always followed the same peaceful rhythm. A slow walk to the mailbox, tending lovingly to her rose garden, and taking quiet pride in keeping her home in order. But one spring morning, her daughter noticed something different. Carmen struggled to rise from her chair. Just days later, she needed help getting to the bathroom. She hadn't fallen. She wasn't ill. But her body was quietly, clearly changing. Experts from the American Geriatric Society explain that in the final months of life, the body begins to reallocate its energy. Muscles, which require a lot of energy to sustain, are no longer a priority. Instead, that precious energy is redirected to keep the heart beating and the lungs working. No amount of healthy food or extra sleep can stop this. It's not laziness. It's not giving up. It's the body preparing. Sadly, families often misunderstand this shift. Well-meaning loved ones may push the person to move more. Exercise, stay strong, thinking it will help. But this can lead to injury, exhaustion, or worse, a sense of guilt. As if the person is somehow failing, when in truth, they are simply following the body's natural rhythm toward rest. The key is to adapt, not resist. Prioritize safety over stamina. Remove fall hazards like loose rugs. Add grab bars in key places. Place chairs along walking paths to offer rest. Help them move gently and without shame. But more than any physical adjustment, what they need is emotional support. Because when strength fades, it's not just the body speaking, it's the soul asking for gentleness. Recognizing this truth can turn frustration into compassion. It invites us to let go of unrealistic expectations and instead offer dignity, understanding, and unconditional love. 6. Changes in breathing patterns, the sound of a body letting go. Another powerful and often alarming sign that the end may be near is a change in how a person breathes. These changes may begin slowly, a breath that sounds slightly different, a pause that seems too long. Then it becomes more noticeable, rapid, shallow breaths followed by long, quiet gaps, and then a soft return. To those watching, it can feel terrifying. You may find yourself holding your breath, waiting, wondering, is this it? This was the case for Raymond, a 79-year-old retired firefighter from Georgia. In his final weeks, his wife, Elaine, began noticing a strange new rhythm in his breathing. During his naps, he would suddenly breathe quickly for a few seconds, then stop altogether. Elaine would freeze, heart pounding, until the silence broke, and Raymond exhaled softly, as if nothing had happened. It felt like a series of little goodbyes. But when they spoke with his hospice team, she learned the truth. This was not a medical crisis. It was a natural part of dying. According to the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, these breathing patterns, sometimes called Cheney-Stokes respiration, are the result of the body slowing down. The lungs and heart are no longer operating at full strength. Oxygen levels fluctuate. The brain responds with changes in rhythm, deep breaths, pauses, then recovery. To the person experiencing it, it's often not uncomfortable or distressing. In fact, it may go unnoticed. But for loved ones watching, it can stir fear, panic, and helplessness. The most compassionate response isn't to panic or rush to call for intervention. It's to stay near, stay calm, and offer peace. Gently elevate their head with pillows. Keep the room cool, quiet, and softly lit. Let a breeze from an open window ease the air. Hold their hand, speak softly, hum an old tune. Even if they don't respond, they may still feel your presence. Elaine later shared that once she understood what was happening, everything changed. The fear faded. She no longer waited for the next breath with dread. She waited with love. She realized she wasn't meant to stop it or fix it. She was meant to be there. And in that presence, steady, silent, loving, she gave the greatest gift of all. If you're still here and finding these insights meaningful, please comment number 6 below to let me know this message is reaching you. And if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs, comforts, and empowers. Let's move forward. Together. 7. Emotional preparation and letting go, the quiet legacy of the heart. The final sign, and perhaps the most profound, is one that doesn't show up in the body, but in the heart. As life nears its closing chapter, many people begin to shift their attention inward. They start reflecting deeply, seeking emotional closure, and preparing spiritually in ways that may surprise those around them. These expressions of emotional readiness can appear in subtle and powerful ways. A desire to mend old wounds, reconnect with lost loved ones, or pass along treasured belongings, with a story attached to each one. Lawrence, an 85-year-old from Nevada, revealed this beautifully in his final months. One morning, seemingly out of nowhere, he asked to speak with his brother, a man he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. No one remembered what caused the rift, but Lawrence remembered the silence. He carried it like a stone in his chest. And now, with time growing short, he wanted peace. He also began giving away his old tools, each one handed to a family member along with a memory. This wrench fixed your first bike. Your grandfather gave me this hammer when I built our first porch. His daughter worried that this sudden sentimentality meant he was giving up, but a wise hospice nurse gently explained, he's not giving up. He's letting go, with intention. According to the National Institute on Aging, this emotional preparation is a natural and essential part of the end-of-life process. It isn't about defeat, it's about completion. These final gestures are a way of tidying the soul, closing open loops, and passing along meaning before words become too few. Sadly, families sometimes misunderstand these acts. They brush them off, change the subject, or urge their loved one to stay positive. But these are not conversations to avoid. They are invitations. So if your loved one asks to call an old friend, let them. If they want to give something away, even something small, say yes. Because it's not about the object. It's about the story, the emotion, the blessing in their voice when they say, "This is for you." These are not signs of loss. They are signs of legacy. Thank you for spending this time with me today. What we've explored together are not signs to fear, but signals to notice, honor, and respond to with compassion. Each of the 7 signs, changes in sleep, appetite, social connection, memory, physical strength, breathing, and emotional readiness, are not random occurrences. They are part of a quiet language the body and spirit speak as they prepare for the final transition. To recognize these signs is not to surrender. It is to love differently and more deeply, to step away from pressure and panic and toward presence, softness, and acceptance. Because when we see clearly, we begin to meet our loved ones exactly where they are. We stop insisting they keep up with the life they're leaving, and we begin walking beside them, one gentle step at a time, toward peace. For families, this awareness is transformative. Instead of feeling helpless or frustrated, we begin to offer comfort, calm, and connection. Instead of resisting change, we begin to honor it. And in those small moments, the soft conversation, the shared silence, the clasped hand, we discover something beautiful, the closeness that only this chapter can bring. If you are the one noticing these signs in yourself, please know, you are not alone. You are not broken. You are preparing, just as nature intended, not with fear, but with quiet wisdom. And if you are supporting someone on this journey, remember, your presence is the medicine. Your patience is the comfort. Your love, steady and soft, is the greatest gift of all. If something in today's message spoke to your heart, I invite you to share it. Leave a comment below with one thing you learned today, or one way you plan to show up differently for someone you love. Your voice matters here. And reading your stories brings comfort and encouragement to others walking the same path. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Your support helps us continue creating thoughtful content to inform, inspire, and uplift. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with your heart. And thank you for choosing to walk this journey, not with fear, but with love. We'll see you in the next video.